at you from my laundry room where I record podcasts. And I'm here to talk to you about our April book. I almost said May. It is not yet May. Our April book, our book club book this month was called Nothing to See Here by Kevin Wilson. And joining me this month is my friend Chelsea. Chelsea's back. What's up, Chelsea?
Oh, what up?
Thanks for coming back again.
Yeehaw. Wouldn't miss it.
I feel like I need to clarify that there are other book club members. You're just my favorite. Just kidding.
Oh, stop it.
Oh, stop it. No, it's fun that you're back because you really hated last month's book, which was a Harlan Coben mystery. And it didn't get great reviews from you. So I'm really excited to talk to you about this month's book, which I already know from our chatting that you liked. Am I wrong?
You are not wrong. Loved this book.
Yay. It is a personal point of pride for me whenever I find a book that you love, because I think you're a discerning customer.
Yes, I love that. I think I'm like never usually in between. I either like a book or I don't like a book. There's not usually it was okay.
Yeah. You're pretty black or white.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I'm thrilled that you liked this. I will say I really liked it too. I actually loved it. I have a Goodreads like sub list that I call Loved It, and to get on there you got to be like that's a prestigious award for me, and I put this book on that list.
Wow.
So I thought it was great. It was like super short, it was super funny, it was like very heartfelt. I had basically I feel like at book club we had almost no qualms, like almost nothing negative to discuss.
Yeah, I think my only one negative was I wanted just a little bit more at the end. I wanted maybe something like what they did afterwards, where they lived, kind of like what happened afterwards.
Yeah, it was pretty open-ended. I agree with you. But before we get into it, let's do a really quick plot summary for those who maybe haven't read the book or read it a long time ago or read it not that long ago but still don't remember, which happens to the best of us. So this book by Kevin Wilson called Nothing to See Here. When I've been telling people about this book and what it's about, I get a lot of like, ugh, kind of reactions. I don't know if that happened to you, Chelsea, but when I tell people the premise of this book, they go, oh, I don't want to read that. And I'm like, no, maybe I'm not explaining it correctly. Like it's, I don't know what I'm doing wrong, but people think by the description of this book that it's like fantasy or sci-fi, and it is not. So I guess going into it, so the premise of this book is that a woman named Lillian, who's sort of down on her luck, gets offered a job, a nannying job, or a governess, if you're fancy, a governess job by an old school friend named Madison. And then it turns out that the kids who are Madison's stepkids have this weird and rare genetic disorder where they burst into flames.
Yes.
And that's the part where I say that part, and then people make a face and they go, oh, I don't want to read that. So I just want to explain, I guess, that, and maybe this is mismarketing of this book. I'm not sure what the problem is, but it's not a fantasy. It's not sci-fi. It's a highly grounded, like, relationship book that is a kind of a coming of age tale. And they treat the bursting into flames like, like you would epilepsy or like any other manageable condition.
Yes.
It's not like they are kind of superheroes, but they don't behave like, they're just normal kids, and then occasionally they get mad and they like catch on fire.
Right. It is, I think he did do a very good job in making it not seem as kitschy, where it would be like like a young adult magic kind of thing. He made it normal. He normalized it to a way where I was like, oh yeah, even as like a medical professional, it's like, oh yeah, fire kids. Yeah. Even though that's like not a thing, but like, oh, fire kids. Yeah.
I did start to question at a certain point. I was like, wait, is this a real thing? And I'm like, no, definitely not though. Right. And we talked about that in book club too. We were like, is spontaneous human combustion a real thing? Do you know the answer, Chelsea? I think I know the answer, but you're the medical professional.
I guess there's ways that you could say that is a thing, but like actually having flames go dance on your skin like he had described, and like it actually like go back and forth on your arms and legs, like no.
Right. Like if you burst into flames spontaneously, you would die.
You would die.
You would die from it. Probably. Or you'd be like severely injured at the very least. Yeah, the kids are not, which is an important plot point. The kids are not harmed when they burst into flames. They are like their skin is like impermeable or something. And so is their hair. But their clothes aren't, and the people around them aren't, and like their environment isn't, but they are. So it is sort of like an X-Men. I kept thinking of the X-Men, which I really like the X-Men, so I was kind of into that.
Yeah.
But like in the X-Men, like kids at a young age like start to develop their superpowers, and like that's sort of like what this was like a little bit. Okay, so that's sort of the premise of this book. That's enough information. I think that gives you an idea of what it is, but I just want to clarify that this isn't like, it's a great book, and it's, even if that description turns you off or that like plot twist, I think I still recommend it. It's worth picking up. Did you, Chelsea, I assume you listened to it on audiobook, is that right?
I did. And it was very well read, in very thick Tennessee accents.
Oh, funny.
Which was, I mean, it just, I kind of loved it because of that. I just think that so often a book can be, and I know I say this on every podcast, but like the reader of an audiobook can make or break it.
Yes.
And
for sure.
oh yeah, and this author, or not the author, but the person that read the book was very talented in not only changing like intonations, but also just keeping very strong with the accent. And it was very much so like they all talk like this, and everybody had a very thick accent.
Oh, okay, that's hilarious because I did not read this book in an
Oh,
accent.
thick accents.
So that's funny to
Yep.
me.
And of course, Madison had an accent, but it was a lot more refined. Whereas, then the main character, it was a little bit more raw.
Oh, okay. Well, I
Yeah.
like that because I do think a major theme of this book is like class separation, or like class distinctions and like
Hmm.
socioeconomic divide. So that,
Yes.
I think that works for me because Lillian was like this kid who grew up with nothing, and Madison has a ton of money and then went on to marry more money. So that like this, stratification of their like economic status is important. So using accents
Hmm.
to like illustrate that, I think that works.
Yeah.
I'm glad that you liked it. What were the other major themes of this book?
I think overcoming fear. I think understanding what love is in a different way. Um,
Oh,
it was just very prevalent in the book, the different forms of love that kept showing up in the different scenarios, and kind of how they presented themselves throughout the story.
yeah,
So, um,
I love that.
some surprises, as far as like things you weren't expecting that just, but there were times when I was like literally laughing out loud. Like I was sitting with my headphones in on the couch, and my husband would be like, "What are you laughing at?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm listening to my audiobook."
That's amazing. I mean,
Yeah.
I feel like I had a similar experience reading the book, which is pretty rare. Like there were some really funny. We can go through some of my favorite ones. On page 23, Lillian's getting a tour of Madison's mansion, and Madison says, "My dad had that dress made for me by a dressmaker in Atlanta. I hated it. Goldfish, he was clueless." "Wait, is he dead?" I asked, suddenly suspicious. "No, he's still alive," she said. "Oh, good," I said, but I didn't mean it. It just came out. "Good," I added, just in case. Like, I feel like that's like such a realistic conversation. Like, someone brings someone up that you haven't seen in a long time, and you're like, "Wait, are they dead?" And then you try to backtrack because you're like, "That was rude. I shouldn't have said that."
Yeah. I mean, I think those little comedic breaks kind of made the story seem a little bit more realistic in a storyline that was kind of unrealistic with the whole, fire children.
Right.
Carl was a comedic presence for a lot of it because Lillian would always kind of jab at him and be like, "Ugh, here's Carl again," and just kind of like the kids would make fun of Carl. It's funny.
Yeah, I know. The relationship with Carl was so funny to me. And I almost thought they were gonna like get together,
Me
he and Lillian.
too. Me too.
But I'm glad that they didn't because I feel like that would have been like kind of hokey. And I also like Lillian's sexuality is kind of a question mark in this book. Like
Yeah, very much
it's a
so.
little unclear like where her loyalties lie. Not that they have to lie anywhere, but like you're
Right.
not sure. She is obviously attracted to Madison or maybe even in love with her. But she references all the time that she's had boyfriends and she has dated and all this stuff. So yeah, I kind of wondered if something was going to happen with Carl, which would have been like really funny, like come all around, but
Mhm.
like I'm kind of glad that it didn't happen. Okay, another line that I loved was when she's like sitting in Madison's mansion and they have the little tea sandwiches, like tiny sandwiches, and she's like, I ate one of the sandwiches and it was gross, but I was hungry. I ate two more. I didn't even realize there were tiny plates stacked on the tray. I'd held the sandwiches in my dumb hands. I love that. And then someone else in book club said they liked this like later part where she says, how many sandwiches did you eat at something like this? There were nearly 20 more on the trays. Did you leave some for propriety's sake? She hadn't touched them. Wait, were they decorative? Just this like spiral of like doubt, self-doubt when you're in a situation where you like don't feel comfortable or feel like a fish out of water. And I feel like I identified with sort of Lillian's experience with wealth in this book because I feel like I have been in situations, and maybe we all have,
Mhm.
those of us who didn't grow up with lots of money, like where you are around ostentatious wealth and you feel really uncomfortable and you don't know
Right.
how to behave and you feel like
Right.
everything you do is wrong and you're wearing the wrong thing and you're saying the wrong thing and you're standing wrong and you're like just everything you're doing it wrong.
Mhm. Definitely.
Yeah. So I feel like I identified much more with Lillian than I did with rich silver spoon Madison.
Yeah, I mean, I think the author did a really good job in making it so that none of the characters were necessarily likable, but you didn't hate any of them. They were all just like very, they were who they were and they had their flaws and, you know, they stood out and you could tell they were very cumbersome at some points. And then they would have those flashes of moments where you'd be like, oh, you're like not so bad. Especially like
Yeah.
each
Well, except for Jasper. I mean, I think she did do that with Jasper, but ultimately he's like unredeemable,
right. Yeah.
which Jasper is Madison's like rich senator husband who just like seems to want to keep the kids locked away and he doesn't want anyone to know about them and they're just a problem to solve and they're not like real people, basically.
Yeah, that and Lillian's mom.
Oh yeah. Okay, that's so messed up.
Yeah.
That's so messed up. But I also like, I don't know, the treatment of that mom character I thought was really interesting in this book because she made like she made that really bad choice where she accepted a bribe to like kick her own daughter out of school.
Mhm.
But then she's always being like, well, Lillian, you always have a place to come back to. And like, she doesn't question like any of her decisions and like gives her a home. I don't know. Like, she was a really interesting character because maybe it's what you said, like, all the characters had moments of like real clarity and humanness.
Mhm.
But I felt like the mom, while maybe on a lot of metrics, like she wasn't a great mom, she also wasn't like a horrible person necessarily.
Yeah, I mean, they each character was very much they were who they were and they were pretty unapologetic about it. Literally every single character. Um
Mm-hmm.
and I kind of like that. They were very strong characters. They weren't wishy-washy. They were who they were. Flaws and everything. They'd admit them and they stood by them. And I kind of like that.
Flaws and all.
Flaws and all.
Coming up after the break, Chelsea and I discuss a really emotional scene that happens in Nothing to See Here by Kevin Wilson.
Want to hear more about your favorite TV shows and movies that are on countless streaming services?
Then listen to Up Next with your new favorite hosts, me, Kristen Aviles.
And me, Christina Walter.
Every other week, we'll highlight one genre, but 2 movies or TV shows, one old and one new.
We'll let you know what's hot and what's not from your favorite
or least favorite
streaming services.
And be sure to stay tuned to the end of each episode where we shout out an artist whose name you should know for their talent in the industry.
So follow us to stay up to date with your favorite hosts from Up Next,
a part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
All right, the first sentence. In the late spring of 1995, just a few weeks after I'd turned 28, I got a letter from my friend Madison Roberts. What do we think of that?
You immediately want to know who Madison Roberts is.
That's true. Yeah. Someone made the comment at book club that this is a very active first sentence. Like, I got a letter. You want to know what's in the letter. You want to know who Madison Roberts is. Like, it's a really active first sentence. It's not about feelings. It's not even really like, it's setting the scene in that we get the year, which I promptly forgot about. I kept reading this book as if it was modern day.
Same.
And then I would be surprised when they said things like, I don't know what the internet is or something. And I'd be like, wait, why not? Is it because you're poor? Like, I kept forgetting that this book was set in 1995 because it feels very present. It feels very modern.
It does, yeah.
Especially like the politics stuff. Like that all was like, seemed like it could happen today too.
Right.
So, I mean, this book is new. This book came out in, 2019. So it wasn't written in 1995, but I did keep forgetting that it was set in 1995.
I wonder why that was the chosen time frame.
Yeah, I mean, I always just assume when books or TV shows or movies are set in the 90s, it's so they don't have to deal with cell phones, which would spoil the plot. That's what I always assume.
That's not a bad theory.
I don't know. I mean, in this book, I think you probably could have gotten away with having cell phones. I don't see why you, I mean, right? Like, they're trying to think.
I think so.
I think it would have been fine because it's not like, I mean, most 10-year-olds don't have cell phones anyway. I mean, maybe they do. I don't know anything about 10-year-olds, I guess. But those kids could have not had cell phones and it wouldn't have been weird to the story.
Yeah.
But maybe it was so that Madison and Lillian couldn't have daily contact.
Had to write letters.
Right. Their whole relationship was letter writing. They were pen pals, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And like, you wouldn't be pen pals today. You'd just like sporadically text, right?
Right.
I would think.
Yeah.
So I guess maybe that's why.
Yeah. I'm okay with that.
If I ever interview him, Kevin Wilson, I will ask. That's a really good question. So Lillian and Madison are best friends at Iron Mountain, a fancy boarding school, for 1 year. Well, a little less than one school year. And I think their relationship is really interesting. And the question I asked book club was, are they really friends?
I think you have different friendships throughout your life. You know, the older you get, the more you realize that too. Like, you have your different categories of friends. And you're willing to tolerate certain things from the different categories that those friendships are in that you wouldn't tolerate with others.
Yeah, that's true.
And, you know, I think it was originally a friendship bred from convenience and from being somebody that was different and approachable. And, you know, when she first goes to this boarding school where she feels like she's already the outcast and the weird one, there's this roommate that she has that's also very weird and abrasive and made her feel a little less uncomfortable. And, you know, from that sparked a tolerance for things that she would not have been as lenient about had she met her 10 years later.
Yeah, that's probably true. I mean, certainly we all have friendships as young adolescents that we look back on and we're like, I don't know if that was really my friend or not.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like this is that scenario. But I also, I mean, there was a weird, I mean, not weird, but there was like an awkward for them, like sexual tension, I think, that sort of took the friendship to another level. At least it seemed on Lillian's behalf. We don't really get into Madison's head at all in this book, so it's hard to say if she reciprocates that, but I think she does. I mean, it's sort of
She
implied.
definitely fosters it.
Yes, she definitely does. And it's implied that she's kind of the one that is the letter writer, at least initially. So, yeah. I mean, I kind of wondered if the end of the book was going to be them getting together and like raising the fire children together.
Yeah, I kind of thought that might happen too.
And I guess it still could, though, right? Like,
yeah, I mean, it
we
could.
didn't really get confirmation.
You wouldn't see Madison. I mean, just from what she said, that she wouldn't do anything to harm her status and her future endeavors of her career.
Right. And I guess if she's staying with the senator, then she probably can't.
Right.
Move in with Lillian.
Right.
Yeah. And that her decision to stay with the senator, what did you think about that?
I wasn't surprised by it.
Yeah.
It was a decision that, seemed very obvious coming from her character.
Yeah.
And her reasonings behind it, that's another thing. She's very unapologetic about herself and what she does and what she knows is messed up. But again, she's not apologizing for it. She has a reason for what she does in all things. So,
Yeah. She was just like, yeah, I'm going to stay with him. Like, he's fine. He supports my goals. Like, yeah. I'm like, all right, get it, girl.
Yeah. Were you expecting okay, so I'm gonna have a spoiler.
Go for it.
Were you expecting Timothy
No.
when that happened? Neither was I. No, not at
No.
all.
It was such a fun twist.
It was. I was not expecting it at all.
And I felt like, okay, this is a sign. I think this is a sign of a good book. When you start to get toward the end and you're like watching how many pages are left because you're like worried about how, like, you're worried about how it's all going to wrap up. You're like, oh, there's only a few pages left. How is this all going to, like, what's going to happen? Like, how is it going to, and you start to get like anxious about it. At least I do. And I'm like, how is it all going to wrap up? There's like so many loose ends and And, I mean, I'm excited to see where it's going. And I totally did not see that twist coming.
I didn't either.
It was awesome.
I liked it.
Yeah, I liked it a lot. And then I liked the like final confrontation. It was very exciting and high stakes. I was pleased that Carl seemed to kind of come around and make the right decision, if you will, because he seemed like a really conflicted character who, like, his allegiance was to his job first and foremost.
Right.
And not to the welfare of those kids.
Right.
And then in the end, he kind of made the right decision and like decided to shirk his responsibilities and help them.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was my one gripe, like I said, at the end, once it had been established what was going to happen and she was happy with that and they were all going to be a happy family. I was like, okay, but like, are you going to stay at your shitty mom's house?
Right.
I wanted them to like have like, and then we decided we bought a house and we moved away and we, this is what happened. And I wanted that.
I know. I almost wish we could get a sequel of like the Fire Kids growing up, what happens.
Or like an epilogue.
Because there was like that scene towards the end where, what was the girl's name? June?
No, it starts with a B.
Bessie.
That's
where
it.
There's a scene where Bessie is like kind of admits that she can control the fire.
Right.
And I'm like, yeah, this chick is a superhero. Like, what's she gonna do?
Right?
Like, she's figuring it out. Yeah, a sequel would be really great. Let's all write to Kevin Wilson and tell him we want a sequel to Nothing to See Here.
Yes, let's do it.
Hi, my name is Sam Post, owner of Phenomwell CBD Store and PhenomwellCBD.com. That's like phenomenal, PhenomwellCBD.com. Tune in where we talk with experts about how the amazing hemp plant can make a difference for people's health and well-being from the Press Play Podcast Network.
let's talk about the title. What do you think of the title?
I think I can hear Lillian saying it in her accent.
Okay.
And nothing to see here. You don't need to be staring. Nothing to see here.
Nothing to see here. That's so cute. Yeah, it's funny. I like it, but I don't know. Part of me wonders if it's a misleading title or something. I don't know. I'm only saying that just based on like the feedback I've gotten talking widely about this book with people, and that they're just like, no, I don't want to read that. And I'm like, no, why though?
I mean, yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I wasn't thrilled about this book either. I was like, this seems weird. But like,
See, interesting.
I mean, if the title had been Fire Children, you know, maybe I would have.
Would that have been better?
I don't know.
Or worse?
I don't know. Maybe I would have been like, oh, okay. Like maybe it's exciting. Maybe it's something.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, and the nothing to see here, like, it does imply like nothing's gonna happen in this book.
Right. Right.
This is a boring book with nothing inside of
Right.
it. And like, yeah, that's funny. So there's a really difficult scene in this book where the kids starts on page 131, so in the paperback version, where the kids sort of confess to Lillian that their mom killed herself and tried to kill them.
Right.
It's a really, really heavy scene. I mean, I think we've read a few books like this in book club that deal with really heavy topics, but do it with humor. And I think this book does an excellent job, but I thought that scene was really interesting and sad and honestly like really hard to read because it's about this like toxic mother who, makes this choice on behalf of her family. I mean, basically a family annihilator. It doesn't work out. The kids don't take the pills she gives them, but that's only because they had the wherewithal not to do it. Anyway, I just wondered about that scene. Like, was it necessary to the story? And if so, like, what did you think about it? Was it handled appropriately?
I mean, I think it gave a little bit of insight into what their relationship was like with their mother and what led them to the point that they were in. Maybe their sadness, their distress, like what actually happened versus them just setting the house on fire because you got a little bit more of an insight into what it was like psychologically for them to know that they were fire children and their mother very openly was like, this is never going to be easy for you, like just end it.
Yeah. I mean, that is a hard thing to get over. Those kids definitely need to be in therapy, and the fact that that senator wouldn't let them be in therapy was infuriating.
Yes.
Through the whole book.
Yeah, well,
get your therapy.
Exactly.
Sir.
Sure.
Did you notice? Oh, you probably didn't because it's a you listen on audiobook, but the dedication is to Anne Patchett, one of my favorite authors.
I didn't know that.
Anne Patchett. Yes, it says for Anne Patchett in the beginning. So that's kind of cool.
That is cool.
Yeah. Oh, and I wanted to talk about, did your audiobook have the author's essay at the end?
No, it didn't.
Okay. So at the end of the paperback copy, it's literally called author essay, and it says, I was worried my anxiety would prevent me from being a good father. My sons changed that. Originally published in Time, in the magazine, in October 2019, reprinted with permission. So I had a lot of questions written for book club, and then I went back and read this essay, and I was like, oh, this essay answers a lot of these questions. So it's a highly personal essay from Kevin Wilson where he talks about being a really anxious kid and wanting to burst into flames at different points. He says, let me see if I can find it. It's really poignant and it really, like, I think kind of explains. He says, he read this book and there was a small section on human combustion. It locked into my brain the recurring image of people bursting into flames. At first, I worried that it could happen at any time, but as I entered adolescence, I kind of wanted to combust. I thought it would actually make me feel better, would burn all the anxiety and worry out of my body, and I would be clean. So that was sort of, I think, the inspiration. And then he goes on to talk about like being a parent and how hard it is and how you feel like you can barely take care of yourself. Like, how are you going to take care of these kids? I mean, he definitely identifies with Lillian and seems to have written this book kind of like as his own perspective as her. And then he has
That's
this other
awesome.
section. Yeah, I think it's so interesting and really, really cool. Then he writes, I've realized something, especially since I've had kids. I've realized that the strong don't protect the weak. They'll do it if it's in their best interest or if they feel like it. But people who are strong and in power find weakness repulsive. They don't want to be around it. They can't understand why it exists. I came to understand that the weak protect the weaker. I might feel like a damaged person, but I am always going to reach into myself and do as much as possible to protect my children, to give them a safer world. I can become slightly stronger to protect the people who need me, even when I feel like bursting into flames.
Wow.
Lovely. And that's kind of like, I think, the premise of the whole book of like, he took Lillian, this super damaged person, character, and put her in a situation where she needed to protect people a little more damaged than she was, and she finds the will and the strength inside of her to be able to do that and to stand up for them.
Yeah.
And to
And she
have
does
a
it
voice
well.
for them. And she does it really well, and she's surprised by it. So yeah, the author essay was great to read. I'm happy to lend it to you if you want to read it. It's really
Yeah.
short, or you might even be able to Google it actually if it was printed in time.
That's really cool.
But I loved that. And it's so fun getting insight into the author's head of like, what was your inspiration here? Like, what character do you identify with? Like, what was going on when you wrote this book? And that seems like what he did.
I like it. And I like that because it kind of, it just goes and shows as well what like a good writer he is, even when he's not like writing a story. Like that was very well written on his part.
Yeah. So true. So true. So Kevin Wilson has another book called The Family Fang, Fang, that I've been really wanting to read, and I'm definitely going to pick it up now that we've done this one.
Yes.
So The Family Fang, be sure to check it out. Was there anything else you wanted to talk about, Chelsea, that I didn't touch on?
Trying to think back. No, I think we touched base on a lot of the like main points that kind of caught me, and I was excited to kind of hash out.
Oh, good. Yeah. I mean, it's a short book. It's only 250 pages. Very quick read, super fun and funny, very like emotionally warm. I guess those are the words I would use to describe it, but I thought it was great. Highly recommend.
Agreed.
And that's coming from Chelsea, folks. Chelsea agrees. Gotta pick it up if she says to do it. Well, Chelsea, thank you so much for your time. I know you're ready to go and eat dinner. So I really appreciate you being here again, second month in a row.
Yeehaw. Always here.
Yeehaw. All right. Well, I'll talk to you later. Happy reading. Books with Brooks is produced by Mo Barrow with theme music by Jonathan Allen. Books with Brooks is part of the Press Play podcast network, which empowers hosts to create high-quality, professional shows that inspire and entertain. If you've been dreaming of hosting your own podcast, we can help. Please email content@pressplaypodcast.com to get started today. Please be sure to subscribe to get the latest episodes wherever you listen to podcasts.